Hi, this is Adam Kunzmiller with BoardGameGeek at Gen Con 2016, and I'm joined by Elena Christensen with Days of Wonder, and we're here to talk about Ticket to Ride, Rails and Sails. So what do Rails and Sails bring to the Ticket to Ride world?
Rails and sails.
All right.
So the rails, the train cards work very much the same way as the train cards in the Ticket to Ride games that you already know and love. You just draw them from the deck, place them down. They're still wild, so you can use those. But there are also sails. They're ships which have their own deck and their own abilities. For example, there's a card here that has two ships on it, and that functions as sort of a double card, as if you had grabbed two. So those are super handy. There are also harbors in this game, and the harbors, you are given 3. They look like this, and you are given 3 at the beginning of each game, and you have to build all 3 of those by the end of the game. If you do not build all 3, you actually lose points for those, but you can place harbors on any of these sort of anchor cities, which is a lot of them. Got a lot of coastline here. So speaking of the map is, one side is the world, and the other side is the Great Lakes. The world map actually does go around, so if you have a ticket that takes you from Winnipeg to Manila, for example, you can go around the edges of the map. You can take this ship from Los Angeles, go around to Tokyo, and then go from there. So that's kind of a fun trick. Let's see, what else have we got here? Another thing about the harbors is the harbors are a little difficult to build. You have to have 4 cards, 2 ships, and 2 trains, all of the same color, and they have to have this little symbol in there. So that's definitely an incentive. It's also a little bit of a gamble. You really have to be willing to hold those cards in your hand and collect and collect and collect until you're able to build those. Also, at the beginning of the game, you will be given a certain number of tiles, which I believe it says on the board down here. At the beginning of the game, you're going to be given 50 ship tiles and 25 train tiles, but you can only keep 60, tokens, I'm so sorry. You can only keep 60 total.
So you have to decide early on if you're going to go heavy, sails or not,
yes.
for example.
So one of the big differences now between Rails and Sails and the regular Ticket to Ride games is you have a new option for your turn. Building harbors is one of them, but you can also exchange. So if at the beginning you find that the tiles that that the tokens that you, I can't even think right now.
Okay.
That the trains or ships that you grabbed aren't the ones that you wanted, you can spend a turn to exchange them for the ones that you discarded early on. And that's 1 for 1, and not only that, but you do lose points every time you do that.
Oh, okay.
So you kind of want to, at the beginning, be thinking really hard about your strategy.
And what are going on with these things
Those
here?
are just other cities. The little trains don't mean anything in particular, except you can't get there by ship.
Got it.
So yeah, anything you can get to by ship does count as a place you can place a harbor. But you want to do that. Oh, I've got one more for you. This right here, instead of just a regular, you have to have 2 of the same. So for example, they go over rocky territory, for example, so we have them in places that have mountains, for example.
So you would need, 4 cards to complete this route. Would it still count as a 2 route for scoring?
Yes,
okay.
And I believe so. And unfortunately, I don't know why I said unfortunately. This is a good thing. For the 2 that you put here and the 2 that you put here, as I understand it, do not have to match.
Oh, okay.
But it is a little bit tougher. You have to spend more to get those tiny little
taking more
bits.
resources out of your hand.
But because there is so little landmass on this map, that actually turns out being pretty handy for getting more train cards out there, getting a little more incentive to gather the train cards. Because we do have a lot of water here.
And how much does the additional sales element add to the time it takes to play the game, for example?
It doesn't take that much longer. It's very much a similar, I want to say 60-minute game, 45, 60 minutes depending. But it definitely adds a thought element. You really have to be more careful. A lot of times when you're playing standard Ticket to Ride, you can sort of, if you run out of ticket cards, it's not as nerve-wracking to grab new ones, whereas in this game, it's a gamble. Every choice you make is a gamble, and if you choose wrong, you may have to spend a few turns getting back on track.
Fixing yes. What you've done to yourself.
Yep.
And still, obviously, lots of options to maybe cut somebody off and
Yes.
foil their
Yep.
well-laid
But
plans.
it definitely adds some new scoring elements. There's new ways to lose points. There's new ways to gain points. At the end of the game with your harbors, for as many tickets that you have going through the harbors, you get massive amounts of points. So they actually end up being very beneficial if you have one, if I had one from, I don't know, Casablanca over to Caracas, and you have a harbor here, you get 10 points for that. If you have two of them that go to the same harbor, you get 20 points. This is on the Great Lakes map, actually. The world map is 20 points for one, 30 points for two, and 40
nice.
points for three. So you can
It's a huge
really
reward.
rack up points on harbors. So it's very easy to forget about them. It's very easy not to remember that piece of the game. But once you add it in, it gives you a huge advantage, especially if you plan early.
Yeah, and I think all those added options for scoring give a little bit more depth to what you're balancing
Absolutely,
and the
and
options
that's
you have to
when you
pursue.
ask about time. It may take longer if you want to take more time to think about those
Sure,
options, because
sure.
you absolutely have a lot to think about this game.
And is this available now, coming soon?
Coming soon. We sold a few at Gen Con, so for the lucky few who got those, congratulations. But this will be coming a little bit later in the year.
All right, well again, thank you, and that was Ticket to Ride, Rails and Sails.
Thanks.
Take 15.